Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Edith and I like to read books and yap about them to you guys. And today you guys are getting kind of a filler video. You're getting a standing video. First of all, I am standing up in my room right now and I'm already regretting it, so let's actually sit down on the floor. As I was in the middle of explaining before we decided to move to the floor, today's kind of going to be a filler video. If you don't know, I started a job at the start of November and I've been working hard to try and plan videos for the rest of the year because I knew I was going to be tired. I knew I was going to start feeling busy, and then 2 videos sort of fell through and all of a sudden I had no video for today. Now I have other stuff for the rest of the year pre-filmed and stuff like that, but no matter what, it would end up moving around on my plan. So I was like, let me just take a little break from the Christmas content, give you guys a little end of the year video, move back in with the 2 kind of like ultimate Christmas videos. We're taking a little bit of a break today from the Christmas content and we're doing a sit down video because that one was quick and easy. I knew I needed an idea. I needed an idea that I could do in one sitting, but still have a good video I would be proud about. And what I came up with was my top 10 reads of 2025 and the 10 reads on my 2026 TBR. Because no, I am not doing the 26 for 2026. I did that in 2024, I did in 2025, and I never do it. Like, I never reach the goal. So instead I picked 10 books and I must absolutely read these books or give them a try, because DNFing is okay with these books, but I have to give them a try long enough to be able to DNF them. But first of all, let's start by finishing the year off with my top 10 reads of 2025. In no particular order, these are the top 10 reads of 2025, and yes, maybe I'm gonna end up reading a Christmas book that I love enough to put on here. I doubt it though, so that's why I feel okay doing this in November. First up, okay, Redeeming 6 by Chloe Walsh. Now, this is going to be brought up in multiple other end of the year videos. Most of these are, because they are the favorite reads of the year, so obviously I want to recommend them and talk about them. If you don't know, Redeeming 6 is the 4th book in the Boys of Tommen series, and it's the 2nd book in the series that I read this year. I finished all of the books that are out in this series, by the way. Yeah. And this is my 2nd favorite. If you don't know, my number 1 is always going to be Keeping 13. This is such a close 2nd, though. Joey and Aoife. Yeah. Basically, again, if you don't know, Binding 13 is the 1st book in this series. And in that, we meet Johnny and Shannon. Shannon has an extremely difficult home life. Look up trigger warnings. These are not cutesy sports romances. Some people apparently sell them like that online, and I could never understand why. Check your trigger warnings and expect them to be delivered on the trigger warnings. Anyway, the 1st book, we meet Shannon with her very hard home life, and we meet Johnny, who's basically this rich rugby lad, which is where they get all of the sports romance in it. Still wouldn't really call it that. And basically they meet. He only cares about rugby until he hits her in the head with a rugby ball, and all of a sudden he only cares about her. And if you don't know, I love Johnny and Shannon. Favorite couple I think I've ever read about. Again, close 2nd, because in Saving and Redeeming 6, we then follow Shannon's brother Joey and his girlfriend Aoife. Joey is struggling with addiction and the same home life troubles that Shannon was dealing with, but in the big brother role. And that's one of the things I really loved about this, is that we get to see from the same home life, but how different it can look from depending on what your kind of role is in this home. I love Aoife because Aoife would protect Joey with her life, and I would do the same. And I love Joey because I would protect him with my life. And this one, I love bringing this one up just because I know it is an unpopular opinion. Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This is my favorite this is my favorite Emily Henry book. And I know, people hated this. Not hated it, a lot of people found it boring. A lot of people said it was her worst book ever. In this, we follow two writers, and they both get the chance to write this older, famous woman's life story down, and she's never told to anyone about this. And she ends up giving them this trial run where she will meet with each of them separately, tell them her story, and in the end they will deliver their piece to her. She will read it and pick whichever one she wants to go with. So, not only do you get the most scrumptious romance that had me giggling at knees touching under a diner table, but you also get a really interesting story in like a rich people drama type of way, told by the older woman. And I thought those were all things that we loved, but apparently it's not. But it's things that I love, and this book had that. Again, I feel like this is such a series that has such mixed opinions. I thought this series was great. I really did. I thought the series was great. I thought it just got better and better, which is why the next book we're talking about is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. And yes, I gave this a 5 stars, and yes, I love Nesta, and yes, I will beat up anybody who hates on her. Actually, I won't. But I didn't read this and hated the characters that other people hate who love Nesta. I feel like I love every single one of these characters. Nesta just has a very special place in my heart, and her story was heartbreaking and so complex, and not just for her. Like, the friends she made along the way and their stories were also so complex. And I'm gonna say this. I think this book is for the people who agree that reading is political, because I think this is probably the one in the entire story that has the most, like, a political standpoint, if that makes any sense. I feel like it's so hard to, like, explain, because obviously all of the books, every single book is political, but all of the books in this series is political because it's fantasy, and fantasy cannot not be political. But I feel like this one was very close to today's politics and women's place in the world, and, like, the stuff that the women in this book says they've gone through is stuff women in the real world go through because of war every single day. And I just think that alone made this such a great story. I listened to this as an audiobook. It's a specific, like, it's actually a podcast on Spotify of a girl who just reads it out loud, and it was great. I listened to this in 2 days because of that. Otherwise, it probably would have taken me longer to read it. It really would have. But I love this. Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. Finally we're back to the ones where I'm not like different from everybody else. I am just the same as everybody else, because everybody and their mother loves this book, as from what I've heard. This was so not what I was expecting, and it was so interesting. When I first wished for this, I wished for it because Destiny Sidwell kept talking about how relatable it was. So I low-key thought this was going to be about, like, people with anxiety and, like, a deep dive into anxiety. So I kept wishing for it, and then I got it, and I read the back, and I was like, wait, a robbery? A hostage situation on New Year's? How? And somehow it was a story about all of that, while simultaneously also being a story about a bunch of people with anxiety. If you don't know what this is about, in this, we have a little bank robber who tries to rob a bank, fails, and instead ends up accidentally keeping a full apartment that was in the middle of, like, a walkthrough on New Year's hostage. Yeah. And you get an insight into every single character and what's going on in their lives, and it's kind of like this you never know what's going on in someone else's life sort of story. And I love stories like that because it's true, you never know what's going on in someone else's life. The Women by Kristen Hanna. This one tore my heart out and made me remember, and again, the same as the Loki, the same as, like, A Court of Silver Flames, the women. I know that's the title, but the women in this book, and the stuff they went through and the friendships they held. I've talked about this so many times. If you don't know, this is about female nurses in the Vietnam War and kind of like how that was. And we both follow, like, I feel like, if I remember correctly, half the book was like our female main character at war and her meeting all these other nurses and her going through all of this and her seeing all of these people. And when you're a nurse at war, you see terrible stuff. Like, you see people blown up and you see people dying left and right, and everybody dying is like, oh yeah, I have a wife and kids at home, could you give them this? And then the second half follows her coming home. And if you know anything about the Vietnam War, you know it's not Americans' proudest moment. And apparently that had to go out over. Apparently they needed to take that out on the women. I mean, they took it out on everybody, also the soldiers who fought in the war, but like the women were easy targets, unfortunately. So, Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I read this for a reading vlog recently in the fall, and I absolutely ended up loving this. I was going to annotate this book. As you can see here, I put some tabs in for a specific thing, but I was going to like full on annotate it. Maybe I even have. Yep. Picked it out. Started annotating. Let me find. Easy here. Started underlining stuff. And then I think I got 50 pages into this and I realized that I needed to like fully immerse myself in the book. And apparently I can't really do that when I annotate. That was a nice thing to learn, though. So I decided not to annotate this and instead just let my brain fully get into this world, because that is what this book deserved. In this, we follow Alex Stern, who gets accepted into Yale. She gets the specific job of monitoring Yale's secret societies. And these secret societies gets into some screwed up stuff. And all of a sudden, her mentor goes missing. So now, not only does she try and find her mentor, she has to like learn to live in this world without one. And all of a sudden, all of this responsibility is hers. And this was just so dark and twisted and great writing. I love Leigh Bardugo. And this just reminded me of why. If it makes you happy, first of all, okay, it doesn't look that floppy, but this is floppy. And again, this one I read very, very recently. And I told you guys in the vlog that this was going to be one of my favorite reads of the year. This was a 6-star romance for me. And I immediately wanted to get back into it and reread and annotate this. And while I haven't done that, it's just because I forced myself not to. I had to force myself not to reread this immediately. This is a small town romance set in the 90s. And basically, Michelle, who is kind of like a big city woman, ends up agreeing to take over her dead mom's bed and breakfast in this small town and ends up moving in right next to him, Cliff. This was just, I can't even explain it to you guys, honestly. This was just a perfect, cozy fall read. The vibes on the cover are exactly the vibes in the book, and I love this cover more than anything, honestly. And yeah, this was a long-ass book. Like, for a romance, it's definitely teetering on the edge of what I would normally like. It is almost 500 pages. It's actually exactly 500 pages long. And yes, that is long for like a cutesy little romance, but honestly, I was not bored for a moment in this, and I think that deserves an applause. Okay, I think what we have here are my top 3 books of the year. And I will tell you guys at the end of this which one of them. Actually, here we go. These are the top 3, and these will be in order. Don't sue me if you're like, oh, that's not a good order. I don't care, okay? Or if I all of a sudden change my mind and decide one of them is better than the others, again, ignore me. But this is probably going to be on the list for a lot of fantasy readers. And while I don't call myself a fantasy reader because I just got into it this year, it is in fact number 3 on my list. Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. If you don't know, this is the 3rd installment in the Empyrean series, which is the 4th Wing Iron Flame Onyx Storm. And I read this in January. it was my first ever reading vlog I posted, end of the year book tag, and then this reading vlog, and that was this was my second ever video on this channel, was me reading and annotating this. This was also my first like full-on annotating a book. And while I don't enjoy the way the colors look, and someday I will go through and change that, this is still so special to me. Also, I just opened it up and I needed to show you guys this because I keep forgetting that this is in here, and I still don't get it because this is not a special edition, and yet I have the pictures, and it literally makes me want to tear it off just to see the full thing. But I'm not going to talk about this one because this is the third book in a series, other than obviously I love this and I gave it 5 stars just like any other book in this series so far. But in the first book, we meet Violet, who starts at this dragon. Actually, she's supposed to be a scribbler. That didn't feel right. I also just pulled something on my lip when I did that grimace. Anyway, she was supposed to be this book girl and like spend her entire life working at a library, and all of a sudden her mom is like, no, you actually have to go through this test and join the college for dragon riders. So she has to go through all of these tests. She isn't made for it. She hasn't had any training, and she has kind of a disease that means that she's like very small and delicate. I hate to say it that way because she is strong and stuff like that, but like her bones snap very easily. She gets blue marks all the time, stuff like that. But she has to go through all of that and meet Satan, the brooding dragon rider. Yeah, and this book was amazing in my eyes, and I know it probably wasn't. I've seen a lot of discourse about this series and all of that sort of stuff, and unfortunately I just can't find it in me to agree with it. I had a fun time with this one, and I'm so excited about the next one, and I kind of need it right now, actually. Second book on this list, Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Oh, just thinking about this makes me want to cry. Again, I actually fully annotated this. This one I like the colors way more because I color coordinated them, and I got some more professional looking ones. This is about lesbian female astronauts. Well, actually, I'm not sure if one of them is bisexual. But, like, this is about female This is about female astronauts in the 1980s who date. Yeah. This was heartbreaking in every single sort of the way. It has a dual timeline, so you see back in time when they first got into the, I don't know if you call it the academy, but like they're learning to become an astronaut, and they're the first female astronauts ever, along with being 2 women who love each other. And there's just, it's the challenges they faces along the way, along with the heartbreaking other storyline that's going on in the future sort of timeline. It's very hard to explain, but if you've been seeing a lot of stuff talk about this and you've been like, but is it really worth it? It is really worth it. It is really worth it, yeah. Which brings us to number 1. And I've really been thinking about this, and then a certain trailer, in case doesn't give too much away, came out, and I was like, no, that it has to be the number 1. It has to be the number 1, and that is, yes, Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. If you don't know, this is the latest Hunger Games book, which came out earlier this year. It was a huge thing. The trailer for the movie that's going to come out next November just dropped, and ever since I saw the trailer, I've been wanting to get back into this and reread and annotate it. And I definitely will be doing that. Like, I will 100% be rereading and annotating this. Maybe in December, but maybe I'll wait until closer to the movie release. But I will be rereading and annotating this because this was, in fact, my favorite read of the year. Yeah, it was. I'm gonna say that pretty confidently, actually, that it was my number one. Like I was saying, it's the newest book in the Hunger Games. It goes back in time, and it happens in between the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and the first Hunger Games. So this is the 50th Games, the second quarter quell. This is Haymitch Games, and in this quarter quell, there are twice as many tributes. And that's all I'm gonna say, except for the fact that this was absolutely heartbreaking, and seeing some of the clips from this in the trailer, I am so confident that I'm gonna be crying my eyes out to this movie, and I genuinely think this could be my new number one movie. If you don't know, my number one movie right now is Catching Fire. And I do have a feeling this could potentially knock that off the chart. I'm very excited about it. So that was all the books, or my top 10 reads of this year. So now let's get on to the 10 books I want to get to next year. First up, because I am on my journey to finish every single Taylor Jenkins Reid book, and I have 2 left, I decided to put one of them on this TBR, After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I'm pretty sure this is like a marriage spat, and they decide to take some time apart. And then we follow her through like learning some stuff while they are apart. And then because I needed at least one romance on here, just to have one in here that I'm like, I know I can read if I'm in a quick read mood. Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I am also on my journey to read every single Ali Hazelwood book, but I do have more of hers that I'm missing, and I don't own them. I heard a lot of bad things about this year when it first came out, and that kind of put me off, and then I slowly started hearing good things about it, specifically from Heather McGlary. And if you know anything about me and Heather, I take every single recommendation she gives me extremely serious, and that was the thing that convinced me that I do think I will enjoy this book. And then we're going outside of my comfort zone with Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. First of all, this cover, and I have a set of 3. I also have Emma and Pride and Prejudice in these sort of editions. And it's beautiful. I, again, know nothing about Jane Eyre. I know it's supposed to be like the perfect autumn read because it's kind of gothic and dark. And I know she takes a lot of walks. And I think I read a spoiler in a book once, but I don't remember what the spoiler was, which is a good thing, because I was angry about being spoiled. And I know that's ridiculous because this is a classic, and it's like, read your classics if you don't want to be spoiled on a this old book. I don't know when it was written, but it's old, and it's like, it's old, so therefore you gotta expect the fact that it's gonna be mentioned in other things as if you already know everything that happens. But I know very little about this, and yet I am very excited about it. From Here to the Great Unknown by Lisa Marie Presley and Riley Keough. If you don't know Riley Keough, she plays Daisy Jones in the Daisy Jones and the Six series, and Lisa Marie Presley is Elvis Presley's daughter. And Riley Keough is then her daughter, so Elvis's granddaughter. And this is Lisa Marie Presley's memoir. At some point, she talked to Riley Keough and she was like, I want to write a memoir. And she gave her some notes and stuff like that. She was like, I want you to help me. And then like a month later, she died. So this is written by Riley Keough, but with like very heavy notes and stuff like that from her mother. And I love a good memoir. And this one is a short one too. Like it's very, sure it's a little bit bigger like this, but it has extremely large font and it's very short. It's below 300 pages. And it just sounds like it could be such an interesting like life to read about. And then this is actually funny because we just talked about the first book in this series as one of my top reads of this year, but I want to read Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo, both because I love the first book and because the third book comes out of September next year. So obviously I need to read this before September of next year. Some people say this is even better than the first one. I'm unsure what Heather... Okay, again, my foot is asleep. I am unsure of what Heather's opinion is on this, if this is better than the first one. But I am very excited about this because I have a feeling it's going to be very interesting. Yeah, I really enjoyed the first one, and I really like the build-up that that had for this one. And I'm really excited about this. And then going on with the Leigh Bardugo train and the finishing/continuing series, we have Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo. This is the second and last book in the King of Scars duology, which is in the same universe as the Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows universe, but we follow other characters. And that's the thing with these. We actually follow some of my favorite characters from those books. And the first book in this series was really interesting. It had kind of a slow start, but the minute I got into it, I couldn't put it down, and I binge read it and loved being back into this world, and I love these characters, and I cannot wait to, like, see more of them, but also to finish a series. A quick little duology. We love a good fantasy duology. How to Make Friends with the Dark by Kathleen Glasgow. If you know anything, you know that this was, in fact, one of those 25 for 2025 books. And no, I haven't read it, and no, I know I'm not going to read it. But I will read it next year. I want to. Like, at the very least, I want to give it a good shot. And then maybe I'll admit that this author isn't really for me anymore, because that was kind of the feeling I got when I read one chapter of this at some point this year. But I do want to give it a fair chance, because I love her other two books when I read those a few years ago, I think. And I feel like I owe it to her, because I love Girl in Pieces, so I owe it to her, the author, to give this one a try as well. The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. This one takes place in Nazi Germany, and we follow Death. It's written from Death's perspective, that's what it says. Some important information. This novel is narrated by Death. And that just sounds so interesting. And bonus points because my grandmother loves this book. And normally I don't read the books my family members love, because they all love these very history-focused books and like Danish books and stuff like that. But when I figured out that my grandmother had read and loved this book, I was like, okay, so I need to read it. The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, and this was again on my list of books to read in 2025, and I never got to it. I read The Women instead, and that one broke me and scared me to read any more of her books. And lately, I've heard so much about this all of a sudden again, which has made me like even more excited about it. This is the only book on this list that I was actually like, maybe I will read this before 2025 ends, but I'm gonna wait and push it off, and maybe we'll read it in January, because it feels like a January kind of read, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. And I'm again really excited about this, even though I have been pushing it off for a year. And last but certainly not least, The Way I Am Now by Amber Smith. This is again with the focus to finish a series. I loved The Way I Used to Be. If you don't know, The Way I Used to Be, check your trigger warnings, but it is about a girl who gets sexually assaulted by her brother's best friend. And we follow her through her 3 years of high school and like dealing with that while not telling anybody, and this friend is still coming over all the time and stuff like that. And this one follows the same girl in, I think it's college. Yeah, it's college. And this one is more romance heavy between her and this guy who was also in the first one. And I want to see this girl healing even more, and I want to see her do it with the guy, because I remember loving them in the first book too. But that is in fact all for today's little filler video. I do apologize if you're watching this and you're like, that was terrible, but I thought it was a great idea actually when I was thinking about it, and it's like a last minute idea anyway. But next Saturday we're getting back into the Christmas content. I have 2 more Christmas videos planned for you guys, and then I have the end of the year stuff, and then it's gonna be a new year, and I have so many ideas for the new year, you guys have no idea. So many great reading vlogs planned, so much stuff, and if there's anything you guys want to see from me, let me know in the comments and I will look into it and get it done. If there's any of the books on the TBR that you're extra excited for a video about, let me know and I will up them. I will put them on top of the TBR. Yeah. With that said, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to give it a like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on your bell notifications so you get notified once we get back into the Christmas content and the end of the year content. And I will see you all next Saturday. Bye.